From Social Prosperity Partners, this is Community Catalysts, where local leaders share practical lessons for navigating complexity, earning trust, and helping communities move forward together. I'm your host, Matt Lehrman.
I have a dream, which many people share, of an America that truly reflects all of its people. So I think getting to work with girls and teach them that their identity is their superpower. It is what makes them uniquely them, and no one else has that. Imagine what our country would look like if all the different lived experiences were reflected in our legislators and in our laws, united by the empathy and compassion that I want them to carry toward themselves.
Joining me today is Sarah Jakle, founder and executive director of DemocraShe, a national nonprofit organization helping historically underserved high school girls develop leadership skills and see themselves as future civic leaders, change makers, and elected officials. Based in Los Angeles, but working with young women from across the country, Sarah and her team create opportunities for students to better understand leadership, public life, and their own ability to make a meaningful difference in their communities. Sarah Jakle, welcome to Community Catalysts.
Thank you, Matt. It is a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you here. I have to say thank you because here's how we met. Back in March, we published an interview with Malika Velasquez, who's a trustee at the Monterey Peninsula School District in California. And you wrote to me just a few days later and introduced yourself and said very nice things about the interview. And I just wanted to say thank you. How did you find the interview?
You know, I was looking for interviews on civic health, which is something that I'm really interested in. And your podcast popped up. And then your interview with her goes right to the heart of what I believe, which is people with the lived experience of approaching and trying to solve problems and ask for change are the ones who make the most effective and compassionate leaders when they get into office.
That's great. She was a wonderful interview. And I'm so glad that you found it, and I'm so glad that it was meaningful. Let's talk about DemocraShe. I emphasized the she part in the intro. I imagine you don't actually do that in real life. Tell us about DemocraShe for anyone who hasn't heard about it. What's the organization? Who does it serve? What's the need out there that you're fulfilling?
Yeah. So when I was the Get Out the Vote director for the California National Organization for Women, I was seeing two very troubling things. One is amazing, brilliant women couldn't see themselves as candidates for office, whereas our male counterparts were self-selecting in. The other thing I was seeing was when women did step into public service, like your trustee, the candidates get up to 10 times more harassment and bullying than the male candidates. So we know, for example, Congress is stuck at about 28% women, even in 2026. But if we want to see the statistics change of women being equally represented, we have to look both at the imposter syndrome that keeps women from stepping up, and we have to look at the experience of women who do step up, which certainly discourages women when they see what happens. So high school is the last time boys and girls think they can run for office equally. So DemocraShe was born. We are a program for historically underserved high school girls, and we provide the civic skills to become active participants in American democracy and elected leaders. But we also provide the neuroscience skills to step out of your comfort zone, overcome self-doubt, and regulate your nervous system if someone is trying to dysregulate you.
Talk about those skills. I want to hear in this context what you mean by civic skills and then what you mean by neuroscience skills.
Yeah, so civic skills is everything from advocating for issues based on your lived experience, advocating for issues based on somebody else's lived experience. How can you stand up for other people as well? It is learning to call your representative, which girls are very nervous to pick up the phone, so we do it together. call your representative, understand this person works for you. Your opinion matters. They count every call as 100 calls. So you're standing up for people who maybe don't know about this opportunity. They make campaign speeches where they run for office, and they go into DemocraShe Congress, where they change their name to Congresswoman, and they propose and co-sponsor and pass bills.
And now talk about neuroscience skills.
So we are an online program because one of the things I was seeing when I was working in elections in 2020 is our states are being siloed off into different countries. So if we want to move forward as a republic, we have to be able to talk to each other across the lived experience of different states. So we are an online program where 42 states are currently represented talking to each other in these rooms. And what we will say is before, for example, they make their campaign speech, so they're running for mayor, they're running for president, they're running for student body council, we'll say, are there any nerves in the room? Can you put a heart on your screen? And the whole thing lights up with hearts. Right? And we say it's so normal. We think we're the only ones who are nervous or who doubt ourselves. So many people do. Here are some skills to help. And we teach girls to ground. So you notice yourself making physical contact, and it pulls you out of your fight, flight, freeze brain back to your prefrontal cortex part of your brain so you can settle in your body and manage anxiety. We teach them to access their inner best friend. So what does the inner critic have to say? Your voice doesn't matter, right? Nobody cares. You're not going to say it right. And then you access your inner best friend, which could be Matt on the podcast. For many girls, it's Taylor Swift. It's Michelle Obama, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And it's who is that voice who sees, hears, and values you? And then we say, we heard from the inner critic. What does the inner best friend have to say about you running for office? And the inner best friend says, your voice is powerful. Your experience is needed. You can do this. And so we teach girls before they do something nerve-wracking, before they step out of their comfort zone, to settle their nervous system, regulate their body by grounding, and make this shift from the inner critic to an inner cheerleader who encourages them. And then we ask them to make a campaign speech.
Sarah, I'm going to ask a question, and I'm a guy, so there's some parts of this that perhaps I just don't understand. Is this a distinctly female neuroscience thing here? I would imagine that there are boys who are high school students in the same age who may not have that grounding as well.
So the neuroscience has no gender. One of the things that I hope to accomplish in my career is a train the trainer, where we teach the science to anyone working with youth, because boys can absolutely ground. In DemocraShe, because we're an all-girl program, we ground with Mother Earth. But the grounding is the science. The Mother Earth is just something that resonates with girls. But if boys were grounding, they might ground with something different that resonates uniquely to them. I think everyone has something that speaks to them, and that is what the community itself would do. The neuroscience is the grounding, or the neuroscience is resourcing an ally. So you shift the way your brain is talking to you. One of the things we teach is inner champion. So inner best friend might sound a little female to some boys. Inner champion is something that everyone can understand as an encouraging, supportive voice. So the ally is the neuroscience. Who that ally is unique to the population it serves.
Sarah, I was looking at your background as we were preparing to talk today. It includes social work, housing advocacy, voter outreach, civic engagement work, and some listeners may naturally hear those experiences through a political lens. But I'm listening to you describe the need that's at the core of DemocraShe, and the language that you use seems so much broader than partisan politics. How do you think about the mission at its core? Is it ultimately about politics, or is it civic participation or leadership development, or is it something even deeper than that?
I would say it goes to the heart of the worth of a human. I think if a human feels, and this is something I've already said, but seen, heard, and valued, and has the capacity to make themselves feel seen, heard, and valued, make other people, that person is going to be a net asset to our democracy as a voter, as a civically engaged citizen, as an elected official. So I am looking to create women who are coming out of the self-compassion work of Dr. Kristen Neff and can relate to themselves and others in a compassionate way. We never tell the girls what to think. What we do tell them is the Viktor Frankl quote, which is, in between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is choice, and in that choice is freedom. We want to make space between the incoming stimulus and your response. So what you show up with is not a triggered response, but your authentic choice and your authentic freedom.
I have to tell you, you just said what for me are the three magic words when you said that the goal is to make sure that they're seen, heard, and valued. When I go out and speak all over the country to civic leaders, the mantra that I share with them is that their job is to make people feel connected, respected, and heard, which doesn't mean that everyone is necessarily going to agree. It just means that no one should come away from the conversation feeling defeated or diminished in the process. I love that you're teaching citizens, you're teaching people who live in communities that they deserve that for themselves.
Not only that, which is so important, and I love that you teach that when you go out. I think we have to be very clear-eyed that when we get hijacked by the fight, freeze part of the brain, it is very, very difficult to see and hear and value, right? To respect and engage, to do all those things. And we can't talk our way out of, it's the amygdala is the piece that's like the fight, flight, freeze part of the brain that connects to the limbic system. We can't just talk our way out of the amygdala. We have to teach people ways to regulate their nervous system. If we want people who are able to come from a grounded place of being able to see, hear, and value, we have to teach them how to move from the amygdala back to their rooted body and their prefrontal cortex. And so 100% I was seeing in our democracy a threat of amygdala hijack, and thinking the more we teach people skills to relate to their amygdala, to make their amygdala their ally, the more they actually can make a choice about how they want to show up and not a triggered response into how they want to show up.
You speak of this with the knowledge of someone with a lot of schooling in psychology, and I saw in your background a master's in social work and a master's in public policy. When did this connection between psychology and public policy, when did you kind of first grasp that?
It was because of a personal journey. So the reason I got my master's in social work and master's in public policy is I was working with the homeless community dealing with mental illness. And I did a military social work degree because I wanted to study trauma, which is that fight, flight, freeze part of your brain, because there's so much of it in our unhoused community. However, that I received my degree in like 2012 or 2013. And then in 2014, Matt, I got an autoimmune disease called psoriatic arthritis and was told I would never work again. Very dramatic. And I did. I lived on a couch next to a puppy dog. And I thought to myself, I may not be able to change the pain and fatigue that I live with, but I do have control over who I am in this moment. And so I immersed myself in what I had been studying at my master's in social work. I immersed myself in the different modalities that talk to the fight, flight, freeze part of the brain, in studying the neuroscience behind it and studying the brain, and starting to make little practices and brain hacks for myself to show up how I wanted. And then I started making my own inner best friend, who was my puppy dog, Max, to just get in the car, to just go and canvass, to just register a voter, to just talk to a citizen about our country. And I did that so many times that I became a national outreach director, a get out the vote director. And so when, as the get out the vote director, I saw what women were going through, right? Thinking of running for office, I had spent my whole life building to that moment to be able to help women and girls with their whole brain. Because that's what I had not only studied, for my career, but studied for myself. So the skills that I teach the girls are not just concepts, they are battle tested. I did my grounding to get up. I reached for my inner best friend. I had my gratitude practice. I savored the positive things to fight negativity bias. So it was things that actually helped me overcome adversity that I want to teach girls how they can also use it to overcome adversity and realize their own dreams.
It sounds like you've come a very long way.
Every day is tough. It is still full of pain and fatigue. But all of this work that I've done has shifted my relationship to it. So I'm able to view it with the same compassion that I hope other people give to me, to each other, right? We relate with compassion. It's a life-changing experience. And so, and I also get to work with radiant high school girls. So the answer is, it is a joyful life.
I love that response. I love that you have found not just a way to work through this, but a reason to work through this. And it sounds like that also translates directly to what you're teaching these girls, that the reason to work through the difficulty, the challenges that they're going to face, for that sense of belonging and for the sense that they own the future and that they can have a tremendous influence over it.
I have a dream, which many people share, of an America that truly reflects all of its people. So I think getting to work with girls and teach them that their identity is their superpower. It is what makes them uniquely them, and no one else has that. Imagine what our country would look like if all the different lived experiences were reflected in our legislators and in our laws, united by the empathy and compassion that I want them to carry toward themselves.
Sarah, you and I are perfectly aligned here. Again, when I go out and speak, the quote that I use, and it's my own quote, I quote myself when I'm concluding a keynote talk, is, "The future is unknowable, but it's incredibly malleable." And I tell the people that I speak with that, even a small change that you make today can make a magnitude of difference in the future. And you don't know where it's going to take you. You don't know the impact it's going to have on others. And that's why you have to start now. And it's why you have to make even the little changes that you can right away.
Matt, I love that. The way that I phrased this to the girls in my own story was the little change that I made from sitting on a couch and being told I would never work again was just get in the car. Just get in the car and you can get back out. And then it was just drive there, right? Just register one person. But I always say to the girls, what is your just get in the car? What is that first step? You have no idea. I had no idea when I got in the car for the first time that I would end up with these director roles and civic roles and start a nonprofit. It was just brave for me to get in the car. And I want the girls to have these moments where they just get in the car and they don't yet know where it's going because they don't have the 10 years to look back on yet. But that's it. It's one step at a time.
What is something that you would tell a mayor, a city council member, a school board member right now, if they're sitting in office, what is something specific that they could be doing in their own communities?
I love local legislators who build youth councils into their offices. That's an incredible way to get young people engaged. They may already be doing this, but I wonder about going out to speak at a high school or a middle school. And sometimes legislators go where their votes are, right? Understandably, they have to win elections. But thinking about showing up in schools and talking about not only their job, but why the kids in the audience could hold their job someday and why they need the kids in the audience to believe that they might, what our country would look like if those kids actually showed up in office. I wonder if something about speaking to middle schools and high schools, if they're not already doing it, would be an incredibly inspiring thing for young people to envision themselves in that office.
Sarah, I want to ask you a bit about the nonprofit organization that is DemocraShe. You already told us you pay stipends for the girls who are participating. Tell us a bit about the business model of DemocraShe. How does the organization support itself?
In terms of our programming, we have a couple ways to engage very busy high school girls. High school girls are very busy. But we have a 10-week program that meets for 2 hours a week, and that is both the civic and neuroscience programming. We have our 1-day summer intensives that are just starting to launch now, that are kind of a best of DemocraShe. And right now on our website for free, we have our whole curriculum accessible in a self-directed model with these, cute 2 to 3 videos of radiant high school girls leading you through the activities. And so there are a bunch of different ways to meet DemocraShe. And then I would say, and the business model, it's been an interesting business being a nonprofit. And so we have grants that support us, right? We have family foundations that support us. We have individuals that support us. A few corporate people have come in. And it's the kind of thing where we currently get 7 times more applications than we have room for. And these applications are extraordinary. So I do feel some importance as an executive director to scale our model to be able to ultimately turn no girls away.
But we're speaking now to an audience of local leaders all over the country. What could they do toward, I assume you're accepting contributions somewhere. Are there sponsorships? Is there some sort of municipal connection to the work that you're doing that they can plug into in some way?
That is a fantastic question. And the answer is we have gotten grants from local municipalities to move a particular number of their girls through our program. So programs that have funded like cohorts that have gone through, local discussion groups in their community. There are all sorts of ways to fund young women from your community to go through the program. And when they go through the program, they're actually interacting with girls from all over the country. So it's both strengthening your local pipeline, but also exposing them in this kind of cross-cultural exchange to states all across our country. If anyone was interested in that, our website is democrashe.org, and there is a contact us button, and we would be super excited to share those opportunities.
And I will put a link in the program notes for this episode. Sarah, your program brings together girls from, you said, 42 different states? And I'm imagining, many different kinds of communities, many different kinds of backgrounds. And I'm wondering, at a time when Americans often seem increasingly disconnected and even suspicious of one another, what have you learned from watching young people build relationships across their differences?
I've learned a couple things. One is if you set people up for success, they are much more likely to thrive. And by that, I mean, in week 9 of our 10-week program, we do DemocraShe Congress. So girls are proposing bills, they are co-sponsoring bills, but by the time you reach week 9, you have been grounding for 9 weeks. You have been reaching for your inner best friend for 9 weeks. And so you have this ability, when you notice yourself starting to flood, you have actual tangible tools to regulate your nervous system and stay present with the person talking to you. And in DemocraShe Congress, we tell the girls that we're going to do a thought experiment because we ask them what they think of Congress. And they say angry, dysfunctional, doesn't work. And we say, we have to imagine something different before it can come into being. So in DemocraShe Congress, you're in your standing committee where you propose a bill and then you need to get co-sponsors. Instead of debating each other and pointing out all the things that are wrong with your sister's bill, we're going to use a yes and model. Yes, this is the part of the bill that I can agree with. And here's my opinion, how I would grow it. You are also allowed to say no. there is no part of the bill that I can support. And we say, thank you for sharing your truth. This is the best of us. Do you mind if we knock on another congresswoman's door? And one of those experiences, there was a congresswoman from California who said, I would like to propose a gun control bill. I think there should be no guns other than in the military or in the police. And we knock on the door. We're all in line, but we knock on the door of a congresswoman from Indiana. And she said, yes, I appreciate where your heart is. I love that you care about people. And this is never going to fly in Indiana. Guns are too much a part of the fabric of our lives. However, my yes and is, I had a sophomore get guns as a gift, and I think that's too young. So I would like to put an age limit on guns, and I would like to see people get a license the same way they have a driver's license. And then they went to the congresswoman from Michigan, and she said, yes, and in Michigan, we're really talking about mental health. I'd like to see this bill support people who've been through gun violence, people who are at risk of gun violence. And we went back to California, and California was like, yes, this makes sense to me. I would say no assault rifles. Indiana said, that makes sense to me, no assault rifles. Michigan said, that makes sense to me, no assault rifles. And the bill that went to the floor, which is the main Zoom room, and was passed by DemocraShe Congress, was this actually national bill where Indiana, Michigan, and California came together and built something together that would make our country better.
I love what you're modeling here, Sarah. Tell me, what is the vision of this? Where is this going to grow to?
I would like to see women equally represented in every room where decisions are being made, and equality in elected office. And I want to see those women who got there because they learned to relate to themselves with compassion and others with compassion. And the public policy they are creating and the decisions they are passing are based in what you and I were talking about, Matt. That people deserve to be seen, heard, and valued. And that is the kind of leaders that are leading in these rooms.
Sarah, we're approaching the end, and I've got a couple other questions I'm dying to ask you. So you and I are recording this on June 1st, but we're going to plan to drop this episode on the Tuesday before the 4th of July, right before the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And, that's a moment that for many Americans carries both pride and concern. Pride and hope in the ideals and the possibilities of this country, but also concern about the division and distrust and how we even move forward together as a society. And I'm wondering, how do you take your vision and compare it to or fit it into the current moment here? What do you think what should we draw from your experience that should give us hope in this moment?
If I may speak for a minute to the Declaration of Independence, I'm going to change it slightly to all humans are created equal. I think there were ideas and hope in that document that I see light up the girls in terms of who we can be. And I think that the people that were left out of that document, the experiences that were left out, the lived experiences that were not reflected, I want to make sure that all of that has the type of actual protection of their nervous systems as they move through an unequal world to get to an equal one. I think we don't just put people out to be hurt. I think we protect them. And that is the skills that we teach, the neuroscience that we teach, is to protect people moving through an unequal world. And I think there is so much hope in the fact that these are skills. I would love to get to a point where I'm teaching them to everyone, right? A train the trainer model where anyone working with young people is taking back some of these skills. But I think knowing that there are so many young women that believe our country can and will be better, they see it for us. And I believe them. And I believe that when they get there, we can and will be better, and we can and will be more healed.
I'm wondering if you think that in the future, we would be well served if this kind of training, this kind of education became part of a school curriculum, that perhaps every 8th, 9th grader and higher gets exposed to and reinforced as they're coming of age and learning not just of their place in society, but place in our civic life, and the fact that they're going to own it sooner rather than later.
You are speaking my dream into the world. I think we can't just invest in the prefrontal cortex of young people in our education system. We have to invest in the amygdala as well. And there's amazing work going on with mindfulness in schools that are doing some of this work. I think sometimes it gets the sense of you have anxiety or depression, which makes young people feel somewhat stigmatized. What I love about the DemocraShe approach is it is so strengths-based. It is, who is your inner best friend? Who is your inner champion? Who do you want to ground with? How can you show up as your best and most radiant self? And someday I think all young people should have that training, whether it's mine or other people's, but have that same training.
So I have a final question for you. I want you to think about the leaders that you're educating right now and what's necessary to be a successful leader going forward. Sarah, what would you say are the qualities or habits that you've come to believe that people who genuinely want to serve others and who want to serve their communities, what are the skills and habits and qualities that we need to cultivate for people to be successful in doing that work ultimately?
My first and foremost answer would be self-compassion. I think failure is a part of life. And we talk a lot about the growth mindset, right? But when you fail, when you have a stumbling block, your answer is to attack yourself. That was terrible. You're so stupid. You did it wrong, right? That just destroys you. And then you're much less likely to try again. When we shift that to, okay, that's what the inner critic says, right? She always chimes in. But what would your inner best friend say about you trying? I'm so proud of you for trying. You did great, right? Like, you might get it next time. That response is much more likely to step out of a comfort zone again. And so I really do think self-compassion, which also generates compassion for others, is one of the most critical qualities to wire into young people. And we are very good at being mean to ourselves. We are very good at it. So we have to shift and learn this kinder cheerleading voice who lets us know it's okay to try, fail, and try again.
Sarah Jakle, this has been such a thoughtful and encouraging conversation, and I am so grateful to you for being open to it. Thank you so much, and good luck to you, to DemocraShe, and a happy 4th of July.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you for creating this space.
Once again, my thanks to Sarah Jakle, the founder and executive director of DemocraShe. One thing I appreciate about this conversation is the reminder that leadership doesn't suddenly begin when someone receives a title or steps into public office. It has to be cultivated much earlier, when people feel seen, heard, encouraged, and invited to believe that their voice and experiences truly matter. And as this episode's dropping in time for the 4th of July and our nation's commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, that reminder feels especially timely. The future of civic life, as always, belongs less to the people who currently hold positions of leadership and more to the next generation, which makes it all the more important that young people grow up understanding that they have a meaningful place in the ongoing work of community, citizenship, and public life. And I think that leaves all of us with a worthwhile question to consider in our own communities and organizations. What are you doing to intentionally help other people feel that their perspective, contribution, and participation genuinely matters. Perhaps that's simply a question worth reflecting on privately, or maybe it's something worth discussing with your team, your board, or someone you trust. And if this conversation sparked an insight, a question, or a perspective you'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you. Reach me at 602-688-2724 and leave a message. And by the way, if you'd be open to talking about any of the hard-earned lessons from your own leadership journey, click the guest link in the show notes. Community Catalysts is edited by Nick Living the Dream Tantillo and produced by Cinnamon Denise Murray. I'm Matt Lehrman of Social Prosperity Partners. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with another Community Catalyst.